This is Ignite English, and find your English voice.
Imagine this. You're at a coffee shop, the barista smiles and asks you a simple question in English, and you know the answer. You really do. But when you open your mouth, nothing comes out. Or something small, something wrong, something embarrassing. And for the next 10 minutes, you feel awful. Not because your English is bad, but because you couldn't speak it when it mattered.
Oh wow, I felt that in my chest. That's literally me.
And you are not alone. This is one of the most common and most painful experiences that English learners have. You understand English, you really do. You can watch movies, follow podcasts, read articles, no problem. But the moment someone asks you to speak, really speak, something shuts down. Something says, not yet, not ready, not good enough. Today, we are going to talk about why that happens.
Okay, so what do you mean by undertrained in a specific skill? Isn't it all just English?
That's exactly the assumption most learners make, and it's the reason so many people feel stuck. Here's the truth. Understanding English and speaking English are two completely different skills. They live in different parts of your brain. They're trained differently. They operate differently under pressure, and one does not automatically create the other. You can understand English at a very high level and still struggle to speak it fluently. Not because you don't know the language, but because your speaking muscle has never been properly trained.
Wait, understanding is separate from speaking? It's not just the same thing?
Not at all. Think of it this way. There are two directions in communication. Input, reading, listening, watching, and output, speaking and writing. Most English learners spend almost all their time on input. Hours every day of movies, shows, podcasts, YouTube. And that builds your comprehension, your vocabulary, your feel for the language. But input alone does not build your ability to produce the language in real time under pressure with someone waiting for your answer.
That's kind of mind-blowing because I've always thought the more I listen, the better I'll get at speaking. And I've been listening for years, but speaking hasn't gotten much better.
And that is the most honest thing you could say. I hear it constantly. I've been watching English movies for 5 years, but I still can't hold a conversation. Or, I understand everything in meetings, but when it's my turn to speak, I freeze. That gap between understanding and producing is real. It's not a personal failure, it's a training gap.
So what exactly is different about the two skills? Why doesn't listening automatically lead to speaking?
Because output requires something that input never trains, real-time language retrieval under pressure. When you're listening, you have time. The sentence arrives, your brain processes it. But when you're speaking, you have to retrieve vocabulary, construct grammar, manage pronunciation, think about what to say, all at the same time, while someone is looking at you, waiting. That is a completely different cognitive task, and you only get better at it by actually doing it.
So just listening more won't fix it. I actually have to speak more. That sounds scary.
It is scary. And that fear is the second part of the problem. But first, let's stay with this. I want it to really land. Your English is not the problem. The problem is that you have trained one skill and neglected another. You are like a pianist who has spent 5 years studying music theory, reading scores, listening to concerts. The knowledge is real, but you have barely sat at the piano, and now you're expected to perform, and you wonder why your hands don't know what to do.
Okay, that analogy really hit me. I've never thought of it that way. I've always assumed speaking would come naturally once I understood enough.
And that belief that one day you'll just feel ready is one of the most common traps in language learning. The readiness doesn't come before the practice. It comes through the practice. You don't get ready to swim by studying water. You get ready by getting in.
But there's something else going on for me. When I try to speak, my mind goes blank. I know the word, but I can't find it. It's in there somewhere, I just can't reach it.
That is what happens when the brain is under stress. Speaking in a second language in front of others is genuinely stressful. Your brain activates its threat response. Blood flows away from the language centers towards survival systems, and suddenly words you absolutely know disappear. This is called language attrition under
Stress. It happens to almost every learner at every level.
So it's literally a brain thing? It's not just me being stupid?
100% a brain thing. It happens to native speakers too. Think of how many times
times you've completely blanked on someone's name the moment you try to introduce them. Stress affects retrieval, always. In language learning, it's amplified because you're already uncertain about the language. So when stakes feel high, the brain locks down access.
And I have this thing where I won't speak unless I know I'll say it perfectly. I rehearse in my head, and if it doesn't sound right, I just don't say it.
That is perfectionism, and it creates a deeply destructive loop. You want to speak perfectly, but you can't speak perfectly.
until you practice. But you won't practice until you can speak perfectly. So you never practice and nothing changes.
That's literally my cycle. I've been in that loop for years.
And here's what makes it worse. Perfectionism tells you that
Making a mistake is a sign of incompetence. But in language learning, making a mistake is a sign that you are trying, that you are in the game, that your brain is working on it. Mistakes are not the opposite of fluency. Mistakes are the path to fluency. Every fluent speaker in every language has made thousands of errors. The difference between them and someone who stays stuck is simple. They made the errors out loud.
I've always seen mistakes as something to be ashamed of. If I make a grammar error, people will think I'm not smart.
And that fear of judgment is deeply connected to shame. When you feel ashamed about your English, your brain doesn't just feel bad. It actually reduces your willingness to take risks. It makes you quieter. And quiet is the opposite of what fluency needs. Fluency needs risk. It needs the willingness to be imperfect in front of other people. And here is the reframe that changes everything. Communication is not performance. It is participation. When you think of speaking as a test, you ask, did I impress? Did I make mistakes? Was I judged? When you think of speaking as participation, you ask, was I present? Did I try to connect? Those are completely different games.
When I frame it that way, the stakes feel different. Like if I make a grammar error, but we had a real conversation, that's still a win?
That is a win. Full stop. No asterisks. No, but my grammar. You showed up. You stayed in the conversation. You connected. That is what language is for.
Can we talk about specific situations? Because I work in an international company and meetings are in English. I understand everything, but when it's my turn to speak, I just sit there. Sometimes I have an idea, but by the time I find the words, someone else has already said it.
This is called processing speed lag. Your brain knows what it wants to say, but the pathway from thought to spoken word isn't automatic enough yet. Meetings are fast. People don't wait. So you get left behind, not because your ideas are bad, but because your output speed hasn't been trained. And the only way to fix that is to practice converting thoughts into spoken English, even imperfectly, even alone. Every time you do it, the pathway gets slightly more automatic. The lag shrinks.
What about phone calls? I avoid them completely. I'd rather order food online than make a phone call in English.
Completely normal. Phone calls are uniquely difficult because you've removed one of your most powerful communication tools.
visual information. In person, you have eye contact, facial expression, body language. On the phone, it's just voice. And voice without visual context amplifies every anxiety about comprehension.
Comprehension and response time. So you avoid it, which feels like relief in the moment but makes the fear bigger over time.
I've been avoiding phone calls so long that now even the idea feels impossible.
That is exactly how avoidance works. Every time we avoid something that scares us, we send our brain a message. This
Is dangerous. Don't go there. And the brain listens. The fear grows. The avoidance increases. The window of things you're willing to do in English gets smaller, and your world shrinks with it. And what about social conversations? When someone asks me something unexpected at a party or with my partner's family, I completely freeze. I can feel myself going red.
That physical response is your body entering the threat state. Social situations are harder because the judgment feels
Personal. With the barista, you worry about sounding foolish. With your partner's family, you worry about being accepted. Higher stakes, stronger freeze. And then you add guilt on top, like they're being so patient and I still can't answer a simple question. What I want to offer you here is this. The people around you who are waiting, especially those who care about you,
They are not annoyed. They are waiting because they want to hear from you. Their patience is an invitation, not a judgment.
That actually helps. Okay, let's talk about what to do, because all of this makes sense to me now, but how do I actually change?
before the tools, one more thing. You said earlier that you feel behind, like you've been studying for years and still feel like you failed. I want to reframe those years. Every hour you spent listening was building your foundation. Your vocabulary is rich, your comprehension is strong, your ear is trained.
Those are not small things. The engine is there. What was missing was the road, and now we're building the road.
But other people seem to pick it up so much faster. Some people just start speaking and they sound good. How is that fair?
People who speak more fluently earlier are not more talented. Their life gave them more reps, more low-stakes speaking moments.
If you had grown up speaking English at school, or lived abroad, or had a job that required daily conversations in English, you would sound different today too. It's reps, that's it. And what that means for you, the gap is closable. It is not the talent gap, it is a practice gap.
And practice gaps can be closed every single day by learners who decide to take output seriously.
That takes some pressure off. Okay, I need the tools. What do I actually do starting today?
Good. Let's get practical. Tool number 1. Start with short answers, not paragraphs, not full explanations, just short answers. When someone asks how you're doing, say one sentence. Good, thanks. Pretty busy week. That's it. Short answers get you in the game. They break the silence. They remind your brain, I can do this. And every time your brain registers that small win, it builds confidence. Confidence builds willingness. Willingness builds practice. Practice builds fluency. You can't skip to the end. You earn it through the small moments.
That sounds almost too simple. Is that really going to help?
It sounds simple, but the psychology is real. The small wins matter enormously. Okay, tool number 2. Say the first simple version, not the perfect version. Not the version you'd say with 5 minutes to prepare. The first simple, imperfect version. I'm struggling with something at work. Simple, clear, real. You don't need the sophisticated version to start. You need the human version, and the human version is always enough.
I love that, because often I don't say anything because I'm waiting for the perfect sentence and it just doesn't come.
It doesn't come because you're waiting under pressure. But simple sentences are always available. I don't know. I'm not sure. Can you say that again? I think the problem is, these are sentences your brain can find even when it's stressed, and they are real communication. They keep you in the conversation.
The "can you say that again" is huge. I'm sometimes afraid to ask people to repeat because I feel embarrassed.
It is never embarrassing. Asking someone to repeat is a sign of engagement. It says, I care enough about this conversation to make sure I understand. Every excellent communicator, native speaker or not, asks for clarification regularly. It is a communication tool, not a confession of weakness. Okay, tool number 3. Stop waiting for perfect grammar. This is the uncomfortable one, but the most important. Grammar errors do not stop communication. Meaning stops communication. If your grammar is imperfect, but your meaning is clear, you have succeeded. Native speakers make grammar errors every single day. The conversation continues. Connection happens. That's what matters.
That's hard to internalize. School taught me that correct grammar was the goal.
And school grammar teaching, though it has its place, has done a lot of damage to speaking confidence. In a classroom, you are evaluated on correctness. In real life, you are evaluated on connection. Those are different games. The sooner you accept that speaking English well does not mean speaking it perfectly, the sooner you become free to actually speak.
What about the panic moments when my mind goes completely blank?
Tool number 4. Use repeatable speaking starters. Short phrases you memorize completely, so when your brain goes blank, you can still start speaking. Phrases like, "That's a good question, let me think," or "From my experience," or "What I mean is," or "I think the most important thing is." These do something remarkable. They keep your mouth moving while your brain catches up. They fill the silence. They give you 3 seconds to find your next word, and those 3 seconds make all the difference.
I've heard of filler phrases before, but I always thought using them was cheating.
Not cheating. Fluency tools. Fluent speakers use them constantly and unconsciously. You know, it's interesting because I'd say the main thing is, honestly, what I've found is, these are not cheating. They are how conversation actually works. They are the scaffolding that holds speech together while you're building the next idea. Use them freely.
Okay, and the last tool?
Tool number 5. Practice output in small, daily moments. Not in a formal study session, in your real life. Talk to yourself in English when you're cooking. Describe what you're doing. Narrate your day in English. When you watch something, pause it and say in your own words what just happened. Order your coffee in English. Leave a voice note in English to yourself. These are micro moments of output. Each one is tiny. Together, they add up to hours of practice. And that practice rewires your brain's output pathways gradually, naturally, without pressure.
Talking to myself? That feels a bit weird.
Every fluent language learner has done it. It's one of the most effective and most underrated practices that exists because it removes the social pressure completely. There's no one waiting for you, no judgment, just you and the language. And you can make all the mistakes you want. The brain still processes them. The connections still build. The muscle still grows.
Let me check. Start with short answers. Say the first simple version. Stop waiting for perfect grammar. Use repeatable speaking starters. Practice output in small daily moments.
That's it. 5 tools. Simple. Doable today.
I want to come back to something. You said speaking is participation, not performance. Can you say a bit more about that?
The goal of conversation is not to display your English. It is to be in relationship with another human being, to exchange ideas, to understand and be understood. Your English is the vehicle. Connection is the destination. And when you hold that frame, the stakes shift. A grammar mistake stops being a failure and starts being a moment where you tried, where you showed up, where you participated.
And I think a lot of people listening right now are feeling something real. This thing that so many people carry silently. Understanding English but not being able to speak it and feeling ashamed of that.
Yes, and I want to speak to those people directly for a moment. You are not broken. The shame you feel is not evidence that you have failed. It is evidence that you care, that English matters to you, that you want to connect. That wanting is the most important thing because it means you will keep trying. And every time you try, Even if it's just one sentence, even alone, even imperfectly, your brain is learning. Your fluency is growing, invisibly, one moment at a time.
I love that. One moment at a time. What's the one thing you'd want people to take from this conversation?
That understanding English is a gift, but speaking English is a skill, and skills are built, not waited for. You don't wait for your voice, you use your voice, imperfectly, repeatedly, consistently. And one day, and it will come, you use your voice and you don't even think about it. Not because you got lucky, but because you showed up day after day and practiced being someone who speaks.
I feel genuinely moved. This is something so many people need to hear. You're not broken. You just need more reps of the right thing.
More reps of the right thing. Small, consistent, imperfect, courageous output every single day.
Before we close, give us one thing to do right now, as soon as this episode ends.
Open a voice memo app on your phone. Record yourself in English saying one of these three things. 1. Describe your day so far in 3 sentences. 2. Talk about a time you felt this exact problem, understanding English but not being able to speak. 3. Say the 5 tools from today in your own words. Don't edit it, don't delete it, don't judge it, just record. You will not sound perfect. That is the point. That is the whole point. You are not performing, you are practicing, and practice is the only road that leads anywhere.
I love that. Low stakes, real, and it's just for you. No one else has to hear it.
Just for you, and yet it counts. Every time you open your mouth in English, even alone, even imperfectly, it counts. Your brain is listening, your fluency being built, one sentence at a time.
This has been one of my favorite conversations, and to everyone listening, thank you for being here. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because that person you're thinking of right now, who always says, "My English is not good enough," they need to know what you just learned today, that they are not broken, they are just getting started. We'll see you next time on Ignite English.
See you next time.